The congressional hearings prove that Amazon FBA is not worth starting if you're going to try to do old school private label, wholesale, or even retail arbitrage methods. The hearings exposed that Amazon will copy private label sellers, and that with over 1.7 million sellers and 4,000 new sellers joining every day, that Amazon FBA is getting saturated. And because of the hearings, Amazon is making it much more difficult for both wholesalers and retail arbitrage sellers on the platform. And in this video, I'm going to break down everything that Jeff Bezos and Congress said during these hearings, talk about why this is the death of private label, wholesale, and retail arbitrage. And finally, at the end of this video, I'm gonna talk about the big opportunity that this all brings up. Because even though these hearings are bad news for most Amazon sellers, Amazon is a $1.5 trillion company, and Amazon makes up over 50% of all e-commerce sales, which is what triggered this hearing, is because they're such a dominant player in the e-commerce marketplace. But one of the biggest reasons why Amazon is such a big opportunity is because over 50% of all sales that happen on Amazon are made by third-party sellers. This is people like you and me that are able to sell on Amazon's gigantic platform. And there are over 200,000 third-party sellers that are making over $100,000 a year. And even though I do think that Congress has officially killed a lot of the opportunity around wholesale and retail arbitrage with Amazon FBA, and I think they also exposed why private label is not a good option when it comes to selling on Amazon. Amazon FBA as a whole is not dead, but I do think this is the final nail in the coffin for those old school ways of selling on Amazon. Now, keep in mind, it used to be back 3, 4, 5 years ago, you could just go find a junk product from Alibaba, slap your brand on it, put it up on Amazon, and it was ridiculously easy to make money with the Amazon platform. But even though it's not as easy as it was maybe 5 years ago to make a bunch of money off Amazon, if you look at Amazon stock, since the start of the pandemic, it's gone up 50%. Despite the congressional hearings, despite all the different issues they've had, people know that Amazon is a powerhouse of a business. And if you know how to properly use and leverage Amazon, you can make a lot of money. Even if it might not be as easy as it was 5 years ago, there's still a really powerful way to make money on Amazon right now. But let's start with the bad news and talk about what happened during these congressional hearings. And for anyone that doesn't know, Jeff Bezos was brought in front of Congress to try to convince them that he does not own a monopoly, that Amazon is not a monopoly. So this was the antitrust hearings. And a lot of really scary things were said during these hearings. And I did a full breakdown video you can watch up here if you want to see everything. But this will be the condensed down version of what I talked about in this video. And one of the big things that Amazon was accused of was basically copying people's products, copying products that were being sold on the Amazon platform, making their own Amazon Basics version of them, and then undercutting the competition and basically driving people into bankruptcy because they had copied their products. Now, this is something as an Amazon seller I've known about for years. So this did not come as a surprise to me. And here's the key thing with this. If you're doing typical private labeling and you're just taking some junk product and slapping your brand on it and expecting to have a long-term business, wake up. That's not reality. If Amazon can easily copy a product, that person does not have a unique enough product. They don't have a proper branded product, and that's not a long-term strategy. So to me, this has exposed that private label is not a long-term strategy for selling on Amazon. The hearings also exposed a really big weakness with the model of wholesale. And they found that certain sellers were selling a product on Amazon using the wholesale model. And for those that don't know, the wholesale model is basically where you go to a manufacturer, you offer to buy the product at half price, and then you sell it on Amazon. So maybe a product like Nike shoes that are normally $100, you buy them for $50, and you flip them on Amazon for the full retail value of $100, making basically the profit after all the Amazon FBA fees. But what they found is sometimes Amazon will go directly to that manufacturer, work out a deal with that manufacturer, and cut you, the middleman, out. And this is something I've been saying for a long time, that wholesale is not a sustainable business model because things like this can happen. When you don't own a unique product and you're not the manufacturer, Amazon can do whatever they want to you. In the hearings, they also talked about how counterfeit goods and stolen goods are being sold on Amazon. In fact, Jeff Bezos himself admitted this in front of Congress. And even though it's going to be extremely hard for Amazon to police this kind of thing, Congress is putting pressure on them to do so. So what does this mean? Let's think about it for a second. This means that Amazon's gonna have to start putting that burden on sellers, and it's gonna make it harder for both wholesalers and retail arbitrage sellers. So what Amazon's going to have to do is make sellers jump through more hoops. And this is true, like I said, for both retail arbitrage because you're selling products that aren't yours, and wholesalers because again, you're selling a product that you don't own. Now, if you're private labeling or you're creating your own passion product, these things probably aren't gonna affect you so much because it's your product, of course it's not stolen, and you can very easily prove that. But if you're doing retail arbitrage or wholesale, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult, not impossible, but a little bit more difficult to prove. But all this being said, Amazon relies on third-party sellers, people like you and me selling on their platform. In fact, Jeff Bezos said,
"We sold only our own inventory. It was a very controversial decision inside the company to invite third-party sellers to come into what is really our most valuable retail real estate, our product detail pages. We did that because we were convinced that it would be better for the consumer."
Which means he knows that it's profitable to let third-party sellers sell on his platform. But as I mentioned, wholesale is not a really great option because Amazon can go directly to the manufacturer or other wholesalers can come in and cut you out. Retail arbitrage is going to become a lot harder in these next few years. In fact, recently, one big thing that they did is they made it so you have to have your address public. Meaning that if you were doing wholesale before and you were kind of not really supposed to be doing wholesale, a lot of people would buy from manufacturers. Even though the manufacturer said you can't sell it on Amazon, they would go do it anyways. Well, now you have to list your address of your seller account, which means that's done. And a lot of people were doing a similar thing with retail arbitrage. And so that's gonna make it a lot tougher for retail arbitrage. And as I also mentioned, with private label being so saturated and the fact that Amazon can just copy your product and undercut you at any point, the question is, what is the best opportunity? What is the future of Amazon FBA? And I think without a doubt, it's creating your own unique product, something that's different, something that's branded, something that isn't easy for Amazon just to copy, rip off, and undercut you. And at the same time, something that isn't easy for competitors to come in and rip off your product, something that's branded properly. I've been doing e-commerce entrepreneurship for a long time. And I wanna share with you by far the biggest lesson that I've personally learned. And I'm someone, I've worked hard more or less my entire life. I worked hard to get into my dream college. I worked hard to get my dream job. And a year into my dream job, I was extremely depressed. I ended up reading this book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which showed me that if I could create a business that could create passive income, I could go live the life of my dreams. So I basically had this idea that if I could make $300 a day, passive income, but I also was only working 4 hours a week, that I would be able to live my dream life. And of course, for me personally, I didn't end up quitting my job right away. And what happened is I just kept getting more and more depressed because honestly, my corporate job, I made good money at my corporate job, but there was really no incentive to work hard. And if I worked my butt off, at the end of the year, I'd get a 3, 4, 5% raise. Eventually I hit a breaking point. I was at like the bottom of a pit. And I woke up one day happy for the first time and realized that I needed to quit my job. Now, here's where the really important lesson starts to come in. So I quit cold turkey and I spent the next few years working on my first company, which is a dance clothing company. Something that I didn't care about, something that I wasn't passionate about at all. And it was draining. What would happen is I would work really hard, but it was so draining that I would get burnt out. And there's this constant cycle of working hard, burnout, working hard, burnout. And even though I was able to basically pay the bills, it was never that successful. I ended up at one point even having to move back in with my parents, which was an extremely low point for me. And it was in that moment that I realized, you know what? I've been working so hard at this dance clothing business, something that the money was there, the money made sense, but I had no passion for. What would happen if instead I said, F that? What if I did something that I was extremely passionate about, something that I thought could potentially be profitable, but more importantly, what if I created a product that I actually believed in, something unique that I wish existed in the world? So I ended up basically starting an Instagram, a Facebook group, and started marketing this idea for a product. And I looked around in my life and realized that I was really obsessed with the idea of eating healthy. And I had started creating my own premium nut butter product. It was a macadamia coconut cashew blended nut butter that I'd blend together in a little mixer, and it was really tasty and it made me feel really great. And I thought to myself, what if I turn this into a business, something that I actually believed in? And so I ended up starting an Instagram, I ended up starting a Facebook group, I ended up collecting a bunch of emails and getting a bunch of attention on this product, ended up launching it as a Kickstarter, raised $15,000, for my Kickstarter. And keep in mind, this is before I had any product. I told people I was gonna be mailing them the product in 2 or 3 months. And so I ended up with that $15,000. I cashed out my 401k. I put every last drop of energy, every last drop of savings that I had into launching this product. I launched this product, and within 2 months of selling this product, my first passion product on Amazon, I was making over $300 a day passive income. And the reason I share this entire story is because a lot of people that are trying to sell things on Amazon are doing it for the money, and they're following the money, and they're only focused on the money. And they're missing the other half of the equation, which is that you actually need to believe in your product, and you actually need to treat it like a real business. This is why so many sellers have been having issues with Amazon, is they don't treat their business like a business. They don't brand it properly. They don't create a unique product. So if you can create a unique product, brand it properly, Amazon is still a huge opportunity. And if you want to know step-by-step my method for selling on Amazon, I did this video right here. Click on that video. And I also talk about how you can get my Amazon FBA course for free. So click on that video, watch that video, and remember to enjoy the journey.